Hi, my name is Robert Stellick with Blue Planet Surf Shop. Thank you for renting a stand-up board from us. This video is required if you're renting a board for the first time. We want to just make sure that you know the basic safety instructions and how to use the board properly, how to handle the boards. So, first of all, safety is the most important thing. We want to make sure we have a liability waiver that you have to sign at the shop. So basically you're saying that you can swim, it's at your own risk, and if you damage the board you have to pay for repairs. Those are the basic points of the liability waiver, and that we're not liable if anything happens to you or someone else as a result of your actions. So basically we want you to be safe. So the first time, if you're paddling for the first time, do not go in the surf. Find a spot that's protected. This is Almwana Beach Park here, where it's very close to our shop on Ward Avenue. It's only about a less than 5 minute drive away. And this is a safe beach to go. Look for a spot that has a sandy beach entry without rocks and so on. And then let me go over the basics of handling your board. So all our boards have a hand carry handle in the middle. So you want to use that. Put the board on the side. You want to stand on the side away from the handle. Lift up the board with the handle and carry the board. Please do not drag the board on the ground. The paint on the boards is kind of like car paint. It gets scratched up easily. We mark any damages on the boards before you take it out. And if you come back with new scratches or dents or damages or dings, we will charge you for the repair. Okay, let's start up with the basic safety instructions. Most importantly is be aware of the conditions. So we don't want you to go out in really strong winds, especially offshore winds can be very dangerous. So look at the sky, check the trees, check the weather forecast, look at the clouds. If the wind is strong and offshore, blowing away from the shore, you have to be careful because the wind will carry you straight out, and if you're not a strong paddler or you don't have good technique, it's very hard to get back into the wind. So what we want you to do is, check the conditions first, make sure it's not too windy. If there's a light wind, you can still paddle, but always paddle into the wind first. Here at Almwana, usually the trade winds come from the east, northeasterly trade winds, and blowing that direction. So what you want to do is turn into the wind first. Make sure you know how to turn the board, and we'll go over that. And go upwind first and then downwind. Another important thing is to keep the board sand free. So if you come out of the water, the board's wet. What happens is that a lot of sand gets stuck to the board. So for example, this board was in the water. If you put it on your car roof like this and bring it back like this, we will charge you to clean it up at the shop. We charge $5 because then we have to take it out and wash it off. We don't want to get the sand all over the store. So what we ask you to, before you take it out of the water, before you load it up back up in your car, please wash the board, and you can wash it in the salt water. Wash off all the sand in the water, and then carry the board straight to your car, put it on top of your car without setting it down so no sand gets on the board. If you did set it down, you have a bunch of sand on there, you can also wash the board off in the showers, but that can be a lot more work. All right, so that's the basic safety and board handling instructions. Okay, so let's go over the very basics of stand-up paddling. So first of all, carrying the board in and out of the water. You always want to carry it. Don't drag it on the beach. Don't scratch it. The little rocks in the beach will scratch the paint. So please be careful when you handle it. The lift-up handle makes it very easy to carry. All the Blue Planet boards have this lift-up handle now. So carry the board into the water to where the fin clears the sand. So make sure you go deep enough so the fin won't touch when you jump on the board. So and then when you're first starting out, you can get on your knees, and the handle is a good indicator for the center point of the board. So that's where you want your feet to be, right around the handle, not too far forward, not too far back. You want your feet to be parallel, pointing forward, a little bit more than shoulder width apart, right around where the handle is. So what you can do first is get on your knees and take a couple strokes on your knees. And as soon as the board's moving, it'll be more stable than if you're just standing still. So after you take a couple strokes, put the paddle in front of you, get up on both feet, stand up and put the paddle in the water right away and start paddling. So you wanna always use that paddle for balance. If you do lose your balance, you can use your paddle to stabilize you. So always use that paddle for stability, and you can push down on it, and you can also lift up on it to keep you stable. And you want to take a couple strokes on one side, then switch sides and take a few strokes on the other side. That way the board will end up going straight. Looking straight from the front, the paddle should be straight up and down in the water like this. You don't want to hold the paddle diagonally out to the side. You want to get the paddle straight up and down and pull it back in a straight line, straight towards the back. You don't want it out to the side because this is a steering stroke and that'll make the board turn more. Another thing is you want to keep your stroke forward, reach forward with the paddle, and end the stroke at your feet. By the time you get to your feet, the paddle should come back out and go back forward again. Don't just paddle way back here and throw water behind you. This is very inefficient. Another mistake that a lot of beginners do is holding the paddle backwards like this. The paddle is not an ice cream scoop or something. You want to hold it with the blade angled forward always. So that's important to hold the angle the blade the correct way. And if you have trouble balancing standing up, you can always get on your knees and paddle on your knees. And also if you have a hard time turning the board standing up, you can get on your knees and do it on your knees. Also another tip for when you're standing up and you have a hard time balancing, don't look at your feet, don't do this. Try to get up, straighten up, and look at the horizon. That'll help you find your balance, and always put the paddle in the water and get the board moving. That'll make it more stable. Okay, so those are the basics of getting up and paddling. So now to turn, if you keep paddling on one side, the board will slowly turn around like this. And to turn faster, you can also paddle backwards on the opposite side. So I'm going to take a couple strokes backwards on this side. That'll make the board come around. Once I start moving backwards, I can switch sides again, paddle forward on the opposite side. So practice this in the deep water. Practice the turning before you get to the shallow reef. So those are the basics of turning. Another thing is, like I said, when you want to go forward, straight forward, you want to pull the paddle straight back. If you want to make a turn, you can put the paddle blade angled out and make like a curved stroke. That'll make your board turn faster. So you angle the blade out, push kind of away from the nose and then back towards the tail. Same thing on the opposite side. You pull it out away from the tail and then forward on the nose. Make like a half circle motion with the blade. That'll make your board turn better. And you can do all this without moving your feet at all. You just stay right in the middle of the board and just turn the board with your paddle strokes. So practice that, turning the board. And the same thing if you're on your knees, same thing, that's how you turn the board. Just use your paddle strokes. And the further away you get from the board, the more of a curved stroke you make, the more the board's going to turn. So another thing is when you're sitting on or kneeling on the board, don't try to hold the handle up here, hold the paddle shorter. That'll make it easier to paddle on your knees. You don't have to hold the paddle all the way at the top. And then another thing is switching sides. You know, when you paddle on one side, when you switch sides, don't try to do it without switching your hands. Always switch your bottom hand when you change sides. So one side, other side. All right, so let's talk real quick about how to come into the beach. So as you approach the beach, you don't want to run into the sand. So what you do is, as you're moving towards the beach, you can get on your knees, and you can get pretty close to the sand, but don't hit the sand with the front of your board because you don't want to scratch the nose. Get off in like knee-deep water or maybe waist-deep water, and then hold the paddle in one hand, or you can put it in the water next to you. Lift the board up on one rail away from you. Grab the center handle, and then take the paddle in the other hand, and you can lift the whole thing up and then carry it out of the water. And now it's best to carry it all the way up to the car to keep it from getting sandy. And also, if it's windy, you want to point the nose of the board straight into the wind. Like right now, the wind's coming from this direction, So what I'm going to do is point it straight into the wind. It doesn't really matter if it's the nose or the tail of the board, but you want to angle the board into the wind, because if I have it like this, I can walk it without the wind affecting it very much. If I have it sideways, it's going to try to blow me over this way. If I have it this way, the board's going to be blowing away that way. So, all right, and so those are the very basic points of stand-up paddling. Basic introduction, give it a try. Don't go in the surf on your first time, even if you're a good surfer. You got to learn the basics first, and then you'll be ready to get out there. And for more technique tips, more advanced stroke technique and so on, please check zenwaterman.com. Aloha.
In the blue mountains, in the middle of the pouring rain. Oh, Marcus Garvey, he looked down over me. Yeah, I've got a third-class ticket, but I'm as irie as a man can be.